Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And this movie is directed by George Lucas and has a huge cast, and I've seen this movie, I think, a couple times before, at least once in my life, as with most people. And revisiting the film, I was surprised at how bad this movie was, and I've always been hesitant to review the prequel trilogy because they've just been talked about to death, and I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna review every movie I own on Blu-ray, and these three were the only ones that I didn't talk about yet, and now I'm here talking about it. Episode 1, Part 1 to the trilogy. And I honestly don't even know where to start with these movies. There's so much to talk about. The fact that people even have a place to begin with these movies is incredible to me. And I guess I'll just start with the cast, I guess. I don't know where else to start, honestly. I kind of liked Ewan McGregor and Ian McDiarmid. I thought those two were trying, and at points I thought Liam Neeson was trying. But everyone else, they were just really bad, and everyone has the same exact voice in terms of how they speak, same tone of voice. No one emotes in any way for no reason. And it's very distracting, and it feels like I'm watching people who are being held back. And I don't see characters, I just see the actors sounding as if they're bored. And that's pretty much every character in this movie except for Jar Jar Binks, and he was the only character whenever he was on screen where I was not bored by him. The only character who was not boring to me, just annoying, being my least favorite character in the entire film. And I don't want to say much else about the character other than the fact that his presence was not boring to watch, at the very least. I know most people won't say that, but that's what I'll say about the character. He was not boring to watch. Samuel L. Jackson is in it. Natalie Portman, Ewan McGregor, and Liam Neeson I already mentioned. Like, really good actors, but they're given nothing to do. And it makes me question, well, why did you even get these people in this movie? Why did you bring such talent to a film where you're going to give them nothing to do? Like, what are you doing? And the story for the film, there is no story, really. It doesn't feel like there was a main idea outside of setting up the origin stories of Darth Vader, which is pretty much the whole point of the prequel trilogy. How it all begins. And I don't feel as though I got a beginning. I felt as though I got some form of context as to some things that happen before the actual story starts, which is just such an odd choice for the first movie in a trilogy. And I think that comes in a trap where you're making a trilogy and you just don't know where to start it, and you just start it somewhere, and it doesn't exactly work. And there are no characters in this movie. They don't develop the characters at all. It's like Padme Amidala. What do we know about her? Nothing. Obi-Wan Kenobi, same thing. Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul, the Emperor. Like, what do we know about these characters? Nothing. The film doesn't take time to really allow you to get inside their heads or anything like that. Instead, they're just explaining how the universe works, which, if you're a Star Wars fan, then that would be kind of cool to you. And I am too. I like Star Wars, and I do like some Star Wars lore, and I do find it kind of fun to read into, but that's lore. That shouldn't really be in a movie, and you shouldn't fill your film up with that to the point where there's no story, because there was nothing that made me feel as though I was satisfied with anything. I didn't have any impact on anything, like in a positive way. I didn't feel as though there were any character arcs. Like, what do characters learn about each other? And I'm not trying to say that every single movie ever has to follow the exact same basic formula of every movie ever made, It's just that these choices that were made in the film didn't pay off, and Star Wars A New Hope, while not a perfect movie, it did follow a very basic structure, but it's not really a bad thing to do that, and ultimately, it being very basic, the original Star Wars, made it better because everything was just easy to get into, and the setups and payoffs are fun, and there's good characters, and it's a fun universe to be in, and the music is great. And same thing with this movie as well. I do like the score from John Williams a lot, and it's like the only good thing about the movie. And although I can criticize this movie for basically anything, the one thing I won't say negatively about it is the music, because it's the one thing about the movie where you can't make the music better. Like, most people would agree with me, I think, on that, is that the score is definitely the best part of the movie, and I would agree too. And a lot of people seem to enjoy the action in the prequels, but one thing that really stood out to me was that it was really poorly shot, and every shot just was way too close for the most part. And there were some parts of the action where you can kind of tell what's going on, but for the most part, it was just way too close. I never got a sense of what was happening, really, especially when the Jedi are fighting. I couldn't really see too well, and it kind of just cuts away from it, or just chooses really odd choices to shoot it. It was really bad, and I was shocked at how bad it was, because I never really had that much of a problem with it in A New Hope. I thought the action was fine, but in this movie, it's the complete opposite in all of the worst ways. It's so bad, and I haven't even touched on the special effects in this movie, and this movie is infamous for using like digital sets. Like, what I mean by that is, instead of building actual sets, it uses like computer generated environments, and you're supposed to believe it. And I'm sure in 99 it would have looked good, but it doesn't hold up anymore, and there's an over-reliance on CG in this movie, and it really shows, and it doesn't look very good. And there are some practical sets in The Phantom Menace, and it does look good, and it makes things better, a bit better for like the actors, and it works. It's something. It's not like a huge compliment to the film, but it's there at least. And it's like one of very few redeeming elements of the film, is that there was a practical set in The Phantom Menace. And there were some really odd sound design choices. For instance, a lightsaber would go past like Darth Maul for a second, but it made the sound effect of lightsabers clashing with one another. And that was kind of odd, and it doesn't happen too often throughout the film, but there are moments like that where there are some questionable sound design choices. And there are tiny things sprinkled throughout the movie that you can appreciate about it, like the designs of all the characters and stuff like that. And there are some scenes that are not as boring as others, maybe. But all in all, the movie is broken at its core. There isn't really anything to like about it. There are no characters to latch onto. There are no performances that I thought were good, really, except for Ewan McGregor and Ian McDiarmid. Like, I thought they were the best parts, even though they're not in the movie too much. And the pod race in the movie, that was fine, I guess. The music was good, but there isn't really much else to the film. There's very little action in the movie for a movie that's almost 2.5 hours long, and there isn't really much there, and it's mostly just characters talking, and it's not very interesting because the dialogue isn't very good or interesting, and there aren't very many funny bad moments throughout the film. There's like a couple towards the end, which I enjoyed, but for the most part it was just kind of dull, and I was just not into it at all. And I don't really want to continue talking about this movie much longer, because if I do that, then I'm probably going to start to get angry. And this movie upset me enough as it is, so. And with all that being said, I'm going to give Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, a 2 out of 10. And for those who are wondering, I could have given it a 1 easily, but there were some elements that made it feel as though it's not the worst movie ever made. There are movies that I've seen than this that would be ones that are much worse than this and much more annoying, but this one was a bit more boring and less offensive to me than some other movies that I've seen, or at least offensive to me. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Play Misty for me. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.